So there's this theory online that seems to be becoming more popular with show watchers, and that's that Jon Snow isn't the son of Ned Stark, but is the son of Robert Baratheon. Now, if you've never heard this theory before, and you're wondering why anyone would think that, well, whether you watch the show or read the books, the idea that Ned Stark isn't Jon Snow's real father is a pretty reasonable one. Ned Stark is this very honor-bound guy with a black and white sense of justice and right and wrong, and the idea that he would cheat on his wife and have a bastard kid doesn't seem all that likely or reasonable. Now, some people believe that Ned had Jon before he married Catelyn, and that doesn't really work with the timeline, but even if it were the case, at this point in time in the history of Westeros, the premarital sex and extramarital sex are considered dishonorable, and Ned doesn't do dishonorable things. Another argument that's frequently made is that perhaps Ned became more honorable, had this more black and white sense of honor and right and wrong because he cheated on his wife. And it was something more reactionary. But the stories we learn about him before the current series, before Game of Thrones, suggest that he's always been this black and white, honor-bound kind of guy. When he's talking to Robert Baratheon about Jon Snow's mother, Robert says that I don't know who Jon Snow's mother is, but whoever she is, she must have been like the hottest chick on the planet if she made Ned Stark forget about his honor for even an hour. Since Robert Baratheon has met him, he's always been this honor-bound guy. We also get the story from Jaime Lannister in the bathtub scene with Brienne, that as soon as Ned Stark walked into the throne room and saw Jaime Lannister on the throne with his bloody sword, with King Aerys' blood on it, he judged him. So he has always been this black and white sense of right and wrong, black and white sense of honor, and cheating on his wife just doesn't fit with that characterization. That's just who Ned is. As far as who else could be Jon Snow's father, there's a hint in I think the second episode where Jon asks Ned, as he's leaving for the wall, who his mother is. And Ned answers him by saying, "You may not have my name, but you have my blood." And he says, like, next time they see each other, he'll answer that question, and of course, they never see each other again. But when Ned says that you may not have my name, but you have my blood, on the surface, you're supposed to take that to mean you're my bastard son. But when you really think about it, what he could be saying is that you don't have my name because you are not my son, but you do have my blood, meaning that you are a member of my family. And many book readers and a lot of show watchers as well, apparently, take that to mean that Ned's mother is actually Lyanna Stark, the sister of Ned Stark, who was supposed to marry Robert Baratheon. And because of that connection, they believe that Jon's true parents are Robert Baratheon and Lyanna Stark. I personally believe that Lyanna Stark is Jon Snow's mother, but Robert Baratheon is not his father. The evidence against that in the books is absolute, but the evidence is only in the books, which is why you see the divide between show watchers who say maybe Robert's his father and no book readers saying that, because you read the books, you recognize that's not possible. And I'm going to bring up 3 points as to why book readers believe that Robert Baratheon can't be Jon Snow's father. So the first thing to consider is, why did Ned not tell Robert Jon was his son? Keep in mind that not only did Ned hide Jon Snow's parentage, but he intentionally misled Robert into thinking it was some woman named Lila, which tells us that, very specifically, Robert could not know who Jon's parents were. Now, there are a lot of theories out there about who Jon Snow's parents are. but only one of them answers satisfactorily. Why Ned had to keep it a secret. I won't go into details about which one that is, but if you've heard of the R plus L equals J theory, that's the theory I'm alluding to. Because if Jon is truly Ned's bastard, there's no real reason for him not to tell Catelyn who the mother is. There's no real reason if it's not his bastard, if it's like, say, Robert's bastard, there's no reason for him to mislead Robert into thinking it's not his bastard. Ned just has no incentive to lie to Robert about Jon being his son. If he knew that Jon was his son, Lyanna Stark, then Robert would have been a much happier person. So he would have had some part of Lyanna to remember her by. That would have made him happier. That would have made his marriage with Cersei happier because he would have been happier. And really, that would have just led to a lot of good things. But that isn't the case because Jon isn't Robert's son. If Jon was the son of, say, Brandon Stark, Ned's older brother, who was supposed to be Lord of Winterfell, if he was his son, then there still wouldn't be an incentive to lie because, one, Jon is a bastard kid. Two, the argument is that Jon would then have a claim to be the Lord of Winterfell and Ned tried to take it from him or something, but Ned didn't want to be Lord of Winterfell. That was something that was thrusted upon him because the Mad King killed his father and brother. If Jon had any claim to Winterfell, he would have legitimized him and gave him Winterfell and ruled in his name until he came of age. So there was just no incentive for him to lie outside of one particular theory. There's only one theory that R plus L equals J is the one theory that actually explains nicely why he has to keep this a secret and he has to mislead Robert Baratheon specifically. The second thing to consider in terms of Robert Baratheon not being Jon Snow's father is something that comes out of the books that isn't talked about in the show, but Lyanna Stark hated Robert Baratheon. Now, they were supposed to be married. They were betrothed, but Lyanna she wasn't particularly happy with the idea. We don't have a lot of quotes from Lyanna in the books, but one of the quotes she does have is that Robert will never keep to one bed. She thought this guy was an adulterer, he was a whoremonger, that if they got married, he would just have bastard children all over the place. And given what happened with Cersei, that sounds pretty true. When Ned tells her that, yeah, he's like that now, but once you guys get married, he'll change, he'll be a different man. Lyanna tells him, love is sweet, dearest Ned, but it cannot change a man's nature. So she has no hope that this guy is ever going to be husband material. Fortunately for her, she never has to marry Robert because before that can happen, she gets kidnapped by the sexiest man on the planet, Rhaegar Targaryen, Daenerys' older brother, who was supposed to be king instead of Robert. Yes, she was conveniently kidnapped by the sexiest man on the planet. Well, in any case, there is one more thing I'm going to mention that goes against this theory that Robert Baratheon is Jon's father, and it's the big one. People seem to think that people believed Ned when he said Jon was his bastard son because Ned's just this honorable, honest guy, and why would he lie about that? But the reason, and that's part of it, but the reason they believed him is because Jon looked exactly like Ned. In the books, Catelyn points out that Jon looked more like Ned than any of her trueborn sons. All of Catelyn's sons and Sansa are all gingers with blue eyes in the books. They all look like Catelyn. Only Arya and Jon actually look like Ned. It's mentioned in the books that Arya looks like her aunt Lyanna, which implies that Jon also looks like his aunt Lyanna. When Tyrion is, describing Jon in the books, he talks about how he has that Stark face. He looks like a Stark. He looks like a Northerner. Which is to say, one of the big draw to the idea that Robert is Jon's father is people say that, oh, Jon looks like Robert. He's dark of hair. And this is where the differences between the books and the show really, really have to be talked about. Because in the books, Jon is not dark of hair. He, Arya, Lyanna, Ned all have brown hair. They all have gray eyes. In the books, the Baratheon look isn't just black of hair. It's black of hair and blue eyes. Robert in the books has 16 bastard children, and they all look exactly like him. Renly also looks exactly like him. The only person that has a, unique look in the Baratheon family is Stannis. Why? I don't know. It is what it is. But Robert, black hair, blue eyes. Jon has gray eyes and brown hair. So looks-wise, he does not look like a Baratheon. Looks-wise, he looks like a Stark. And for these three reasons, book readers completely dismiss the idea that King Robert Baratheon, first of his name, is the father of Jon Snow. However, they do believe that someone else who would have been king is indeed Jon Snow's father.